I'm very excited to introduce our next guest. A lot of the people listening and watching may know him by his nom de guerre, which is Brooklyn Dad. He was Angry Brooklyn Dad. I think he is now Brooklyn Dad Defiant, the same idea. And he has a podcast actually on the Really American Network, Defiant, and he's a consultant to the Really American Network. And I want to talk with him about his Twitter account. We're going to be talking about that, but he has 1.3 million followers, and he has become a major influencer on Twitter. But most recently, he's published a book. I'm not sure if I should describe it as a graphic novel. I actually should have asked him about this beforehand, or in some ways as a way of addressing with satire the psychology of Donald Trump, a sort of comic or children's book sort of format, where he's actually making a lot of comments about the psychology of Donald Trump. His book is The Bigliest Loser. And you can see there with little Donnie there is having a temper tantrum in the middle of the floor on his classified documents while he's surrounded by a group of people from the administration, January 6th, the man with the horns, and Rudy Giuliani and Marjorie Taylor Greene. And then we've got, what's her name, shooting a gun. Anyway.
Laura Boebert.
Laura Boebert, thank you. Yes. So without any further ado, let's bring on Majid Padelan is his real name. Okay. But I got it wrong, didn't I?
Yeah.
Sorry, I can tell by looking at the face.
It's Majid. Majid. Yes.
Majid Padelan. See? Yeah. And I want to tell you, I've had to practice saying Kamala's name. I really had to pray, and I said it wrong. And then people, of course, corrected me. I tried to understand. Some of us who are old have trouble learning to say new sounds. You know what I mean? It's really a real thing.
The thing with Kamala's name, I think you give most people a pass on that, okay? Because some people are pronouncing it Kamala, and some people are pronouncing it Kamala. I think you've got the syllables right, but the emphasis is wrong, and I think it was explained comma la.
I love that. Which made
that's
easy
for my brain.
Head. That's been helping me. That's been helping me. But see, it's like I'm pronunciation for dummies. I need something like that.
It helps.
But see, a guy like Donald Trump is intentionally mispronouncing it, which is nasty. To be
devaluing and disrespectful.
When Sarah Huckabee Sanders was so vicious about her, she deliberately calls her Kamala.
Did you deliberately call her Huckabee, by the way?
Yeah. I couldn't quite get that name. I'm having a phonemic paraphasia.
But it's more like a Freudian slip because you see, because you wanted to insult her. You see, because you hate her.
That's true. She's such a despicable human being.
And speaking of hate, okay, so I really want to talk about the phenomenon that you become on Twitter. Because I have to say, you and I have been in the Twitter trenches now, on my account, Duty to Warn, you on your account. And, we've put out tens of thousands of tweets. You know what I mean? It's not like we came to Twitter and like we were celebrities. And so we got all these followers. I mean, we kind of earned it the old fashioned way, by pounding out a point of view and being right and being smart and being articulate and just saying it over and over and over again. And I really miss the old Twitter. Because Elon Musk has really turned it into a cesspool. It used to be the public square, and I think it used to have a lot more influence, and it used to be a lot more fun. We used to think it was bad then and complain about it, but actually, we would have interchanges with people like you, who we'd be listening to. Now, I have a theory that all three of us are from New York City, okay? And is there something about being a New Yorker that can make you the kind of person that can just sort of tell Donald Trump to go fuck himself 1,000 different ways over and over and over again, and you never tire of it, and they can never shut you up, and you just won't stop. That's like someone from Brooklyn.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And first of all, I just wanted to say, I didn't get to say this earlier. Thank you so much for having me on this show. I've been watching this show. I'm a huge fan. I wish that you had been doing this for years. And I hope you continue to do this for years, not necessarily just to touch on Trump, but maybe also to diagnose, or dissect Trumpism and all, because there's going to continue to be fallout from, he's leaving a mark. He's leaving a skid mark where he's been.
Oh,
But
yeah.
as
Yeah.
to your statement about New Yorkers having a unique ability to tell somebody, you go fuck yourself, yeah. But I also think New Yorkers in general kind of got a bad rap.
Mhm.
We got kind of this reputation as being unhelpful, as being rude, selfish, fast paced, don't give a shit. Like the opposite of Tim Waltz, right? Tim Waltz is that guy who will he'll
Yeah.
pull over and sees you having car trouble. What's the problem here? And he'll fix your car for you, and then he'll invite your family over for dinner. We're the complete opposite. Hey, I'm walking here, huh? Hey, but
right.
we're also friendly. We're also helpful.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't tell you how many conversations I have struck up with complete strangers on the subway, on the bus, waiting online at the bank. You know what I mean? And
I
so
do.
you kind of get accustomed to dealing with people on all levels. From the
Yeah.
guy, the guy on the subway who is doing his performance art thing, or any number of wild and crazy interactions. So yeah, we are kind of very adept at speaking to many different people, because New York City is a melting pot. It's the melting pot. You have people from
Mm.
everywhere. We don't have the excuse, I've never run into a person of color before. No, we all have,
But
unless you're from the outer boroughs.
but but Jeet, what I've been learning though is we grew up in a New York City of a generation ago, and
Mm,
I find when I go back to visit friends and family, it's not the same. It doesn't have that same melting pot feel, at
mm,
least in Manhattan. Even less so in parts of Brooklyn. It's gotten so expensive. A lot of hedge fund
uh,
people.
Mm.
So I don't. But I do love the idea and my experience of New York too. Oh, one last thing about John was saying about calling Trump out for who he is for New Yorkers. I'll never forget Bill Maher about 5 years ago. No, it was when
it was
Trump was.
longer. You talking about the orangutan thing?
No, I love that. No, but he was quoting people as saying they like Trump because he's so authentic. And Mars line was authentic. He's a douchebag from Queens. Like we all know what that is.
Yeah. And also,
He's Archie
as
Bunker.
far as authentic is concerned, the fake hair. He's got the fake orange tan. The lifts in his shoes. Everything about him is fake. His favorite quote is fake. His favorite coined phrase is fake news. But everything about him is fake.
Yeah, it's
So
projection,
Well, it's a
isn't it?
projection. Exactly. Calls everything fake because he is fake. And by the way, just for the record, I agree with you about New Yorkers being friendly. What I think is so interesting, you talk about all these conversations you strike up. I really notice when I live in the suburbs, I don't strike up as many conversations as I do when I'm in the city. But because people in New York will tell you what they think about anything at any time for any reason. Okay.
yeah.
And it's not aggressive, it's not hostile. It's just the presumption they have that you should be interested in hearing what they have to say and that they have something interesting worth hearing.
Yeah.
Whoever you are.
That's right. Absolutely right. And as far as that notion extends to Twitter, when I first came into Twitter, I was using it, every other week to comment on a TV show that I thought you should hear my opinions about this.
Mhm.
Excuse me, about this TV show or a baseball game that I watched. I was not using it regularly at all. And then 2016 came. I think I had about 60 followers. And the Republican Party gave Donald Trump the nomination for the presidency. And something in my brain flipped, like a switch flipped. And I was like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is happening? Literally, I
Yeah.
was outraged. And it's it's partly because we know what a shitheel Donald Trump is. We in New York already knew what a shitheel he is, and this was long before the Access Hollywood tape came out, and I think it might have been before he said John McCain wasn't a hero because he was captured. Before he did that jerky thing when he was mocking the disabled reporter. Before that stuff, we knew he was a piece of shit. So then some of us were kind of following along with casual interest, like there's no way he's going to win this thing. We thought like, oh man, it's going to end up being Ted Cruz, because it was down to Trump and Ted Cruz. Like, oh well, I guess it's going to be Ted Cruz, but they gave it to him. So I started tweeting, and I was angry. So I was like tweeting my anger about this thing, and I went from tweeting once every week or two to like tweeting 5 or 6 times a day and
Right.
more. And so I started off with 60, and by the end of the month I had 3,000. And then by the next month that number doubled. And by the following month it quadrupled. And by the end of that year, I think I ended up with, and I was not Majid Padelin. I was Brooklyn Dad for Hillary was I changed my profile
I
name
remember
to.
you as Angry Brooklyn Dad. Wasn't that? Weren't you?
I know I've always described myself as an angry Brooklyn Dad, but it was Brooklyn
No,
Dad
okay, that was
4.
not your handle. Okay, I apologize.
No, yeah,
I
it's
was wrong
okay.
with that.
And I didn't become Brooklyn Dad Defiant until November 9th. That day that we found out that it was confirmed Hillary lost, and I'm
Okay,
part of a bunch of different
right. And then with
discussion.
resistance, then with the resistance.
Those DM groups, and I
Yeah.
went into the DM groups, and my friends were like, well, guess I'm gonna pack it up and tuck my tail between my legs because the trolls are gonna come after me. And I was aghast. I was like, are you fucking kidding me, bro? You
Right.
now, when we
That's when the
need
fight
you,
really
this is
begins.
when you're gonna give up. And that's when I changed my name to Brooklyn Dad Defiant. It's not that people think that I'm defiant of Donald Trump or defiant of the system. No, I was defiant of that sense of giving up. That
Right.
I was defying that, and I remain so. I remain eternally hopeful, and I think where there's a will, there's a way.
Well, I agree. And, I'm glad to have you here. We're on the eve of the election, not quite the eve, but a few weeks away. This has been a long, long struggle, and people like you and me, to some extent, Harry, but, on a more daily basis have been in the trenches. This has been a war. This is information war. And I did think that after Biden was elected, that I could literally hang up my uniform and just go back to my normal neurotic life. And of course, no, they called us up for another tour of duty, but this is it. This is the battle. If we've had any, if as influencers, we've had any influence, if we've done anything to help move the ball, this is the moment where if we've contributed a quarter of a 16th of a millionth of an inch, this is the moment where it's going to matter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I too was looking forward to getting back to boring politics, just instead of worrying about this guy who is an adjudicated rapist who wants to do away with our constitution and make himself a dictator for life. I'd like to just get back to, well, this guy is corrupt, and he wants to he wants to just he wants to be elected, and he's a shitty guy. That's it. As opposed to this guy who was just like a towering pile. You couldn't possibly create a fictional character who was this bad and who was positioned this high in American politics. It's absurd. And that's part of the reason why I wrote the first book, the Littlest President, in a children's book format, because children's books on the surface, they tend to be somewhat absurd. They're rooted in fantasy, right? But there's always that underlying, there's always a moral of the story. There's always a lesson to be learned. So that part of the children's story is fantasy, is fiction. But
Interesting.
every part of The Littlest President and its sequel, The Bigliest Loser, is rooted in reality. Every strip of it, with the exception of like, I changed the names, like Donald Trump is known as Spanky McDumbass, you know.
You portray him as a baby, which I think is also a statement, you know, within a statement, right?
Yeah, he's got a ginormous head and a little tiny body.
Well,
I
we
like.
actually go ahead. I was just going to say
Oh,
we have some clips of some pictures that I want you to read for us.
I like portraying him as small because he is a small, petty man who is
Very good.
obsessed with size. He's obsessed with the biggest crowds, and are my hands the right size, and you know, and he's putting lifts in his shoes, and you know, he's not really 215 pounds as he says he is, but you know, it's all about size with him. And so he really is a small man, you know. So to portray him as such, I thought was, you know, kind of poetic
And
justice.
psychologically infantile, right? I mean, he's frozen at a very primitive state of existence. And, you know, the scenes you have with him having a tantrum or whatever, I mean, really portray his level of psychological maturity. Well, let's see some of the pages. And actually, can you read them for us? And actually, because we have people who are listening, you know, who I can't see, half our audience is listening. I'm going to ask you to read them, but I'm going to ask you also to describe some of the illustrations so people can visualize what it is we're seeing.
My pleasure. Okay, so what we're looking at here is Spanky sitting in a little red and yellow car. Now, so there's a meme that it's been out there for a long time that depicts a full-size Donald Trump sitting in one of those toy plastic cars. And so that's what I was going for with this one. But the street he's on a street that is empty. It is deserted. These were the days and weeks right after we heard that COVID was a thing. And I remember, like, they were laying off a lot of people. They were shutting businesses down left and right. So what you see here are stores that are closed. You can see some business fronts that are boarded up and they say out of business, closed, et cetera, et cetera. And Spanky McDumbass is in his little toy car saying, "I take no responsibility." So the text for this page reads thusly. But soon, everyone saw that this was serious. The sports teams shut down. Restaurants shut down. Businesses everywhere shut down. But Spanky refused to tell the country to shut down to slow the spread of the disease. Spanky was really irresponsible. And that is that's the meter that I use throughout, you know, at the end, at the bottom of the page is Spanky was this and Spanky was that, you know, and it's always it's sticking with that narrative, telling the story of what he did and who he is as a result of what he did. I felt it was important to cover COVID in this book because my first one, The Littlest President, I literally published it on the day that I lost my job, the day that I was laid off by a Trump supporter, and so yeah, ironically, that was the day I became full-time Brooklyn Dad Defiant, and but you know, there was March 21st, and at that point, it really, you know, he was saying that 15 would soon be 0. We didn't have thousands of people dying per day yet, you know. So that wasn't captured in my book. And all of the stuff that followed wasn't captured in The Littlest President. So I thought it was necessary, with the election coming up, to make sure that this stuff goes on record, that he is held accountable in my very serious history book. It's not just COVID, but it's also January 6th, and it covers the crimes and all the stuff that a certain percentage of the American public is ready to memory hole and just forgive him for, and he doesn't doesn't deserve anyone's forgiveness. He never asked for forgiveness. He certainly doesn't deserve to be forgiven for these things that caused many, many deaths, that cost the loss of many businesses and many jobs. So yeah, I wanted to make sure I captured this and also give people a chance to laugh at a very tense, stressful time, because I know myself, I am stressed every day. I'm scared to death that that America might get this wrong. Somebody asked me the other day, Brooklyn, you have Kamala winning in this book. What are you going to do if she loses? I'm like, I don't know. The
Time.
troll.
You're going to do time.
They're like, the
care
trolls
about yourself.
They're like, the trolls are going to come after you. I'm like, the trolls are coming after me anyway. No matter what. So bring it.
I like that. That's
Majid, I really do believe Kamala is going to win. And John and I have been arguing that she's really further ahead than the polls show. And the media is just so into the horse race that they misinterpret stuff. But let's assume she wins. What happens with Trump's follower? With Trump, I mean, what does the show continue?
Well, so I've also predicted that in the book as well. I predicted Kamala's victory, and I predicted that Donald Trump has yet another trick up his sleeve, and it's he's going to attempt to mount yet another stop the steal thing. I saw something on the news today where they were saying that the RNC has submitted several lawsuits regarding the election already. Like they're already claiming fraud, even though the election hasn't officially happened yet. So I suspect that's what he is going to attempt. I just hope that Kamala's victory is so overwhelming. It's so in your face, like obvious, that she's got like an abundance of more votes than he does, that it'll be too big to rig, so to speak.
Let's see the last page of your book. I had a whole bunch of other pages, but we didn't have time to go through them. But Rex, can you switch to the last one since we're talking about it, the outcome? I'll let you read it and describe it.
Okay, so for those of you who are listening, what we have on the screen is a Department of Corrections bus with some prison bars on the back, and Spanky is crying his eyes out. And there's a banner. there's a banner stretching across the back of the bus that says "Just incarcerated," and there are balloons attached, and there are cans attached to the rear fender. and there is a massive crowd on either side of a long and winding road. There are people on both the left and the right of this road, all holding up a middle finger to Spanky McDumbass as he's being carted away. And the text reads, "Now that Spanky had no more court appeals and he failed to get elected again, it was time to face the music. Spanky was convicted of most of the 88 counts he was facing. But since he was so old, he was only given a total of 12 years in prison, which meant he'd get out at age 90. Millions of relieved Americans came from far and wide to watch Spanky get driven away to prison. The crowd was tremendous. It was a huge, bigly crowd. It was the bigliest crowd ever. So finally, the littlest, oldest convicted felon had the bigliest crowd of middle fingers ever." The end.
Yay! That's great.
We can only hope.
If he gets 12 years, that's could be a life sentence.
I think it'll take a long time, and I hope it happens. I really do.
Like they say, next year in Jerusalem, Next year, we see him in your paddy wagon and can give him the middle finger.
What, John? You mean
Please.
next year in Attica?
Next year in Attica, right? Good one. All
But
right.
yeah, this book was fun to write. I almost didn't go through with it. Actually, there were several points at which I just didn't feel. I didn't feel the narrative moving forward the way I wanted to. This is a fiction, right? In terms of, it the end result of this book has not yet happened. So certain things have not yet happened, but most of it is true, right?
Mhm.
And what was happening, what was leading up to July had me kind of bummed out. There was a narrative in the media where they were like, Joe Biden is old. And also, we thought you should know that Joe Biden is old. And while you think about that, think about this. Joe Biden is old. And they were ignoring all of the other crap that Donald Trump, all of his insane rantings, it was irrelevant.
That's what brought me out of retirement. That issue specifically is what brought me out of retirement. And I'm hoping that, I'm hoping that what we had to say made a difference. Listen, I think that Kamala's doing a great job. She's got this message. They've got the message, and I think they are running the campaign with the message. They're getting through, I think.
Please.
Harry, did you have any other questions for Brooklyn?
No, but Majid, it's so great to have you. So much fun.
Oh, thank you. It's a thrill and a privilege to be here with you guys. Really, thank you for what you guys are doing. It is absolutely essential.
Thank you, and vice versa. I'm so glad you came on.
Right back
Thank
at
you.
you.
See you next time. Bye-bye.